Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, today I want to answer some questions that you, the viewers, have been asking. I get emails on a daily basis asking a lot of different questions, but probably some of the most popular questions that I get asked are about the Ozarks, what it's like to live here. Is there places available to purchase or to rent? What's the weather like? Where's different areas that are better to move to than others for people that are, homestead, prepper-minded people? And so I thought that I would take some time today and make another video talking about the Ozarks. It seems to be a very popular subject because as things just keep getting worse, and in some areas much, much worse, people are realizing that they need to pull the plug from where they're at and get the heck out of Dodge and try to find a place that they can live that's a little bit safer, that they can be a little bit more self-sufficient, some soil that they can grow and raise things on, where they can live the way they want to live without really any intrusion in their lives. And the Ozarks is one of those places that you can do that. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and also get into kind of the negatives that people fear about the Ozarks. We'll talk about that a lot too. Before I get started on that, I also want to talk about emails. You guys do send me a lot of emails, and I'm not complaining at all. I spent about 4 hours last night reading and responding to emails, and I'm still not caught up. So I just want to let everyone know, go ahead and send me the emails. If it's something that's a time sensitive, that's very important, maybe you can put something in the subject line so that kind of I can see it, because I usually scroll through it every day. And if it seems like it's important, maybe I can respond right away. But know that if you send me an email, it may take a week or two sometimes. Usually it was about a 3-day turnaround, but here lately with the channel just kind of exploding and the amount of emails that I'm getting, it may take a week or so before I can get back to you, but I will read them and get back to you. I don't want to ever get to this place like some channels where they may charge a fee to respond to an email or for advice or just to have someone to talk to. The whole point of me doing this is really to build a community minded group and connect people and help people realize that they're not alone out there. They too can be prepared, even if there aren't others that are right next door to them that think like themselves. So keep the emails coming, but just understand that I may not get back to you right away. All right, so let's talk about the Ozarks. It seems to be a very popular subject, especially nowadays. I mean, it's nuts. Things are just crazy. If you haven't watched the little quick video that I posted earlier today about the president supposedly planning on giving a speech tomorrow night, you probably should watch that one. Anyways, one of the things that I get a lot of, and I get some pretty nasty hate mail. I've even had people tell me right to my face that are from the Ozarks, that live here. Why do you get on there and you talk so great about the Ozarks? Because then people are going to move here. And we like the way the Ozarks is. Not a lot of people here. We like the kind of people that live here. We don't want a bunch of people moving into the Ozarks. I get that. And I feel the same way. But here's the deal for us fellow Ozarkians out there watching this show right now. People are moving to the Ozarks regardless of me, you, or anyone else. Properties are selling all the time. And from my understanding, because I do have realtor friends, the vast majority of the people buying up these rural properties here in the Ozarks are not native to the Ozarks. These are people from other states, people from California, Colorado, Michigan, New York. They're moving in here. Missouri, and especially the Ozarks, is an extremely conservative area, but there are people moving here from other parts of the country that probably aren't the most conservative, minded people. So what I figure is, if I can use my little voice here on my corner of the internet and encourage like-minded people that think like you and I. They may not necessarily be, hillbilly Ozarkers, but they're conservative and they want to, have limited government. They want to live a life of freedom and independence, and they want to be as self-sufficient as possible. We might as well encourage as many as them to move here And for every one of them that moves here, that's some California or New York liberal that doesn't get to buy that property. That's my thinking on it, because people are going to buy all these properties for sale anyways. Now, if you move here and you're from out of state and you're like, what's people are like in the Ozarks? Well, people are pretty closed off in the Ozarks at first. If you're a newcomer, if you're some new neighbor, they might be friendly and stop by and say hello, but they may not be really kind of close at first. And that's okay. They're kind of checking you out because they're afraid that, well, what if this person is from San Francisco and, they're bringing Nancy Pelosi style politics out here. They don't want that. Don't come here trying to change the Ozarks. You love the Ozarks. If that's why you're moving here, because you love it, you love the beauty of it, you love the culture here and how people are, then come here and don't change it. Come here and just fit right in and live just like everybody else does around here, which means we don't raise a stink about stuff. We don't care if our neighbor doesn't mow his yard when we think he should. We don't care that he may have a few junk cars out in the back field. We don't care about that. That's his property and his business. And as long as he doesn't hurt me or infringe upon my property in any way, then I don't care. And that's how things go around here. And too many people want to move here sometimes and they want to change it. And if you can just move here to try to fit in, slow down, slow-paced lifestyle that it is around here, be okay with the guy in front of you at the grocery store standing there for 3 or 4 minutes talking to the checkout girl, that's okay. Now, but what's it really like to live in the Ozarks? What's the weather like? What about the bugs, the ticks, the snakes, the rain, the heat, the cold, the ice? What's it like? What about all the land? Is it good land? Is it rocky land? The Ozarks I believe, has all the pieces to make it a very good self-sustaining region. In fact, I've heard it on very good authority from people that I trust that have sent me information it's information that at some point in the past was classified, that the DOD has done different departments within the areas within the DOD. They have done studies in the past, of where's the most survivable places to live in the United States. And the Ozarks is one of them. They rank the Ozarks quite high. A very well-known person in the Christian world of the past, Corrie ten Boom. Many of you are probably well familiar with her. She was famous for the book that she wrote growing up in Nazi Germany, and her family was able to help hide Jews from being taken into the concentration camps. Wrote a book about that. Later on became a quite well-known kind of evangelist and missionary around the world. She once spoke very highly of the Ozarks and felt that the Ozarks was kind of an oasis, and it would be one of those few places on the earth that in the last days would be safe to live. That being said, it's a beautiful place. The Ozarks has plenty of water. We usually dry out in the summer, starting about this time, and actually this year for summer so far has been a pretty wet summer. We're usually a little drier than this. Last year we certainly were. August is one of those months that we don't really get much rain, and that's fine. We get a lot of rain in the spring and the early part of the summer. Depending on where you're at, you're going to get about 45 inches of rain a year, which is certainly enough rain. The Ozarks also has one of the largest freshwater aquifers under the Ozark Plateau, or underground, and that's where most of all these springs and creeks and stuff come from that are natural, of this massive aquifer that's beneath the soil in the Ozarks. So water really isn't a problem here. As you can see in the videos, it's very green. We never have to worry about forest fires and things that you see going on out west in the Northwest. That's just not a problem here. Occasionally it dries out a little bit, sometimes in the summer, and you want to be careful with brush fires that could start a whole field on fire. But as far as seeing these wildfires that take out, hundreds and hundreds of acres of forest. You're just really not going to see that here, for at least now, unless things drastically change. The bugs is one of the big questions. And I just want to say this. If you live in a city, a developed county, high population area, and then you come out to the Ozarks, because I've actually had people tell me this. They're like, wow, we just can't believe how many bugs are out here. Flies and gnats and ticks and mosquitoes and just bugs. There's just bugs everywhere. We don't really spray anything out here. If you live in a bigger city, developed counties, they tend to do a lot of pesticide spraying on the roadsides and different places to keep the bugs down. Out here in the countryside and throughout most of the Ozarks, nothing is sprayed. The county governments don't spray anything. Most of these small town governments, they don't spray anything. There's not a lot of big crops grown here in the Ozarks. It's mostly cattle, dairy, and beef. So the farmers aren't spraying very much, if at all. And so, yeah, there are going to be more bugs here. But honestly, probably not too much more than a lot of other places that are like this. We do have ticks. A lot of people hate those. I am one of them. And while ticks can certainly be dangerous for the transmission of diseases, if you look on national maps, the probability or the possibility of contracting a dangerous disease from a tick in the Ozarks is much less than in places in the Appalachian Mountains and up in the Northeast and stuff. They have a much higher percentage of it up there. Doesn't mean you're not going to get it, but it's a pretty low risk here for most people. You have to just be smart. When we moved to this property, no one had lived here for, well, forever. And so ticks were pretty bad. And we just did nightly tick checks. That's just what a lot of people do. You get ready to go to bed at night. You get the kids trained to do it. If you got little ones, you need to check them, look in all the crevices of the body, because that's where they like, and you get rid of them. We don't use anything like DEET. I've had mixed results with that. And honestly, it's the same way that I've had with things like essential oils. Not that they don't work, but typically essential oils, their strong fragrances don't last terribly long. And after about 20, maybe 30 minutes, they kind of lose their potency, and you have to reapply them to keep that. The best thing for ticks is the proper animals to keep them down, and to keep areas mowed. Speaking of bugs, I got this fly that won't leave me alone. Ticks like to be on tall grass, and so do chiggers. And so anywhere that we walk or outside, we try to keep those areas mowed pretty well, and we have paths everywhere, and we keep those mowed. We also have chickens, ducks, and turkeys. Turkeys, I think, in my opinion, are the best. I know that guineas online are what everyone talks about with ticks, and they do a good job of eating ticks, but guineas are horribly annoying for the most part. They make a very loud noise. They carry on and on and on. And the last ones that we had, sometimes guineas, they don't like people and they stay away from you, but these last ones that we had, they would not leave us alone. They followed us everywhere. Whenever we were working somewhere, they would come and sit and stand around us and just carry on and on and on and on and wouldn't stop. So we found a home for them from someone that wanted guineas, and we just have turkeys. And turkeys, if you look, they eat probably just as many, if not more, ticks than guineas do. And this year, I think I have found 2 or 3 on me, and I've only heard of the kids finding maybe 1 or 2 on them. They're not around. Now, if I go off into the woods, I'll certainly run into them, but around the house, don't have them. Same way with chiggers. Mosquitoes, I mean, they can happen here, but they're certainly not as bad as other areas. I've been in places in this country, the mosquitoes would carry your children off. They're so big, and that's not the case here. Keep standing water dumped out. That's the main thing. We have a lot of bats on our property, and I encourage the bats. You can come outside at night, and you'll see bats around our house just flying everywhere. Most of the bats here in the Ozarks are completely harmless. And they eat a lot of mosquitoes. And so we really don't have much of a problem with mosquitoes at our property. So that's that kind of stuff. What about other stuff like snakes? Well, we do have those. In fact, I saw a copperhead just the other day here on the property. They can be harmful. Sometimes you have these, water moccasins that are pretty potent, and they can be harmful. We do have a couple of species of rattlesnakes here in the Ozarks, but they're not that bad. And there are ways you keep the brush down. You don't have a lot of stuff stacked around your house. Let them live off in the woods and do the things around your property, keep them away. And it works for us. We are okay with the occasional black snake, or especially a king snake on the property. In fact, if I get a king snake in the coop, I just kind of leave it alone for a while. I'm willing to sacrifice a few eggs here and there because king snakes are really good snakes to have around. And usually if there's a king snake around, there's no copperheads around, because the king snake will in fact kill and eat them. Other wildlife. We've seen mountain lions on the property. We've seen bobcats on the property. I've not seen any black bears, but I know in fact they are, because we have a neighbor not too far away and they've gotten some on some game cameras. So I do know that they're around. I've just not seen any on the property, and maybe they're here and I just don't happen to run into them. Most of the wildlife is not harmful in that way. If you have little small dogs or cats, the mountain lions could become a problem. They do like to kill them. But we have some good-sized dogs. We raise Pyrenees, and, pretty much nothing comes on the property because of those Pyrenees. They do a really good job. We have 2 males, and then we have a female that's separated. But the 2 males, they're very good at the job that they do, and we don't really have to worry about that kind of stuff. Weather. I think the Ozark weather is pretty decent. People up north complain that it's too hot and muggy. People from down south complain that the winters are too cold. Can't please everyone. We do have periodically decent winters. This past winter was a really good winter for us, I guess you could say, or a really harsh winter. We had anywhere between 9 and 10 inches of snow. We had some very cold nights during that cold spell that came through and froze people down in Texas. That's not every year, though. An average year here in the Ozarks, an individual snowfall might have maybe 2 inches of snow. Usually it's a dusting, could be up to 4 inches. The bigger snowfalls that are 10 plus inches, they don't happen every year. Every 6, maybe 10 years, you might get a winter like that. Summers are kind of the same way. Summers, range into the mid to upper 90s. Occasionally you'll see a 3-digit day. This humidity can happen. But one of the things that I like about the Ozarks weather is that no matter what the weather is, it doesn't change to stay that way very long. So like last week, we had hot, muggy days every day, mid to upper 90s, every day, high humidity, just miserable. This weekend, we had some storms blow through, nothing severe, cooled us down. Now we're in the low to mid 80s, and the humidity is, I don't know, but it's very comfortable out. In fact, all day I've been out working. I did a lot of mowing, and, I've sweat a little bit, but it's been very comfortable. This is common. Water sources. I talked about water underground. Surface water is very common in the Ozarks. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a creek on your property if you buy here, but there's good chances you'll have at least a wet weather creek. And some places have, like this, a year-round creek. And it's not that uncommon. Of course, you're going to pay a little bit more for the land because it's more valuable, but it's not too uncommon to find it. Another thing that's not that uncommon is springs on the property. We have one that's undeveloped. Someday I'll get over there and develop it. But it's not too uncommon to find a spring, an area that it's just wet all the time and it needs to be dug out, and you can pull out get a spring going, water flowing. That's pretty common here in the Ozarks. The Ozarks is filled with springs. We have lots of caves, lots of up and down hills, lots of ravines, lots of rocks. Probably one of the things that people complain the most about is the rocks. If you have low land next to water, you can find some pretty good topsoil. If that's not the case, then you're probably going to want to bring in some dirt for your garden, because we do have pretty rocky soil. If you want to deal with that, and work the ground to get the rocks out, you can usually come up with some fairly decent soil. But other than the really low-lying areas near water sources, you're probably going to deal with some rocks. The people in the Ozarks, I think that's one of the best parts about it. Most generally. I mean, there's always the bad apple. There's always the person that's the drug dealer or the dope head or just the trashy person, just the grouchy, grumpy person. But you know what? You're going to find that anywhere you go. Anywhere you go. Most of the people in the Ozarks are just common, decent, good people. The type of people that help you out when you need it. The type of people that will stop on the side of the road to help you out. I've been in places where I've broke down and no one would stop and ask if you needed help. Out here, you can't be broke down more than 5 minutes and someone's pulling off to the side asking if you need help, if you need a ride. That kind of stuff's common. A lot of these little hardware stores and farm stores and little restaurants and stuff, you get to know the people that work there. They're decent people. People seem to be more trustworthy, and they're more open about just talking, because that's just how things are here. I've had it described that the Ozarks, it's almost like its own little country. It has its own culture, its own atmosphere. Yes, we do have some bigger cities, not large cities, but a few bigger cities. But the vast majority of the Ozarks and its real culture is out here in the countryside. There are a lot of people that are preppers. Most of the people out here, just regular everyday people that don't even call themselves preppers. You talk to them about it and they're like, well, yeah, I keep 6 months to a year supplies of stuff. That's just normal. It's just what you do. And as far as homesteading, it's a pretty big thing here. There's virtually no restrictions whatsoever from the government. Most of these counties have no building codes whatsoever. And it's pretty easy to live the life that you want without any intrusion from the government. And most of the people around here, the neighbors and stuff, they're okay with it because it's so commonplace. You can't go very far out here without seeing someone that's obviously a homesteader, maybe living in a small home, solar panels out front, gardens, goats, sheep, cows. It's normal. And so it doesn't take that long to find people that are like-minded around here. Last but not least, Missouri is a very religious state, and the Ozarks is very religious. In fact, I've heard it said many times in the many years I've lived here that the South may be the Bible Belt, that the Ozarks is the buckle to the Bible Belt. And they may not all believe exactly how you believe, but finding Christian, Bible-believing, conservative, traditional-minded people here in the Ozarks, well, that's just everyone for the most part. So it's much easier to find people that think like you in that way. Overall, I love it. I'm not saying it's the only place to live. There's certainly a lot of places that you can go in the world and in this country to have a self-sufficient lifestyle. But considering the laws, the people, the environment, the cost of living, everything, just how the land is, the history here, because that's really the history. The history of the Ozarks are people that came here just to get away from it all and live off the land. And I think the Ozarks is the place to be. There's still a lot of land for sale. I see it all the time. The prices have gone up some of them it's gone up too much. But if you're dedicated to finding it, you can find land here. You can still find 5-10 acre plots with, little farmhouses or a place that you can build your own. And there's usually some pretty decent neighbors around. You just have to be understanding that people live the way they want to live, and they don't want people telling them how to do otherwise, and that's okay. All right, folks, thank you all for watching. Catch you in the next video.